Hi and welcome to this video in a new series where I plan on exploring the principles of sound design, show you how to make your own synth sounds and explore a little bit of relevant music theory on the way. Each time I'll be demonstrating sounds shown on a hardware synthesizer along with a version of the same sounds on a free plugin that you can download and try at home yourself. I'm planning on this being an intermediate series, so I won't be stopping to explain every single word I use along the way. Although in parallel with this, I'll also be making a set of glossary videos which explains every term used in synthesis individually. I also need to point out that I will be using a lot of generalizations on the way. Particularly the music theory is a very deep subject, so I'll just be skimming along things that I think are relevant, but please feel free to experiment around with the things we talk about and explore as much as you can on your own. So first up, let's try and make a retro sort of sounding pad with a kind of warbly, worn tape effect. So to demonstrate this pad sound, I've chosen the Nord lead. It's going to be really good for demoing the general principles of synthesis and what we need to make a pad sound. But honestly, it's a little bit underpowered and lacking in features, so to get the subtleties of movement, I'll then elaborate it later with a free plugin. So what do we need to make a pad sound? Well, the key thing is movement. There needs to be a lot of changes in the sound that will shift around and not stay static for too long. Lots of layers, long attacks and releases usually, and polyphony is important. Now this means that we can play chords. If we've got a monosynth, that's not possible. It's not impossible to get pad-like sounds on a monosynth, but being able to play chords is going to make us fill out the harmony, which is what we really want from a pad sound. Pad sounds tend to have a very broad, less defined sound than something like a lead or a bass, so it will be harder to pin down. They're used generally for filling out or defining the harmony of a song, a bit like strings or like an orchestra. Something that's big and full. It will give us atmosphere is what we're looking for. So I've set up this initialized patch on the Nord. I think it's what most people would generally consider to be initialized patch. It's just basically a beep, no attack release, no movement, filter wide open, nothing set up to control anything. So let's dive in. We've got our saw set to oscillator 1. If we bring in oscillator 2, which is also a saw, and then we need to detune it a little. So immediately we start to get movement in. If we add some attack to our amplifier envelope, and then some release, you're already starting to get something like what we want. Another trick we can use on the Nord to get a bit more movement into the sound is add a bit of the modulation envelope to oscillator 2. We set our decay really long and tweak it as far as we want it to go without sounding too wonky or ill sort of sounding, and then set our attack. That's gradually going to change the tuning of oscillator 2 as the sound plays, and it sort of emulates a kind of analog drift. So now we've got that set up, I'm going to switch to 24 dB filter, which gives more of a synthetic sound, less of an organic instrument type sound, so we're really aiming for a synth pad here. Turn down our cutoff frequency. So now we're getting a nice warm pad sound. And that's add a bit of the filter envelope to the filter itself, so that it'll open and close the filter as the sound plays. So again, attack and release, more or less the same as the amp envelope. If we turn up our envelope amount, Now this envelope is opening up the filter as the sound plays and then releasing it down at the end. You might need to tweak your envelope amount versus cutoff amount to get it to where we want it to be. That's a bit more like it, and let's lengthen these a little. There we go. So you might want to add a little bit of resonance, maybe not too much. And if you can do, not a bad idea to add keyboard tracking. This means that for each note played, the cutoff will be in a different position. This will broaden our sound a little bit more again. Let's add a bit of pitch LFO. This LFO 2 on the Nord only does triangle, so it'll only go up and down depending on the speed. We are targeting oscillators 1 and 2's pitch, so let's turn it right up so that we can hear what it's doing. Obviously we don't want that much, but that's the principle. If we back it off, speed back down, you get that kind of wonky tape sound that we're looking for. So if we add in a filter to our mod wheel and then back off maybe the envelope amount again, we're going to be able to control the cutoff mid note on the pad sound. This means we can get more expression into our sounds. I would avoid anything with a long attack having velocity. That meaning that the harder you press the key, maybe the brighter the sound would be, because with long attacks and velocity on, you don't really know what you're doing until the sound's faded in, and at which time it's too late to undo the strength of your playing. Best with long attacks and sustained sounds to have a mod wheel, so you can adjust the sound mid-flow. So if we really want to go for the whole wonky tape aspect, best thing we can do is to add our sample and hold or noise waveform. This is a stepped noise, which we'll demonstrate, and send that to the filter. As you can hear, it's just stepping through values, but if we really turn it up, back that off a little. And we're a bit heavy-handed, so we need to just tweak things into position just to taste. Somewhere around audibly stepping, but not quite full on noise, which is where that is. So it gives it that slightly wonky, warm tape vibe. And then best to just add some reverb, because it's a pad sound and it needs to be big, so we need a sense of space. This doesn't have a reverb on it, but I'm going to add one in my door. And then additionally, if we have the option, we can also add unison, which on the Nord will play two versions of the same note at the same time, detuned slightly away from each other, and then panned left and right, which gives us a really wide sound. So that's what we end up with. So now let's try and do the same thing over again in TyrellN6, which is a lovely free plugin from Yuhi, who makes fantastic stuff. This is a really nice sounding plugin, and it's got a lot of features in common with what the Nord can do, but then a hell of a lot more. So when you first boot it up, you'll get this initialized patch, which is the two oscillators playing, and again, nothing really controlling them. This time we're doing things slightly differently. These are variable wave shapes, so let's just listen to this on its own. We've got some adjustment in real time of the actual waveform itself, so this aim for somewhere between saw and square for this one. And then we'll do the same thing on here. This is actually mislabeled, this should be a saw. Let's tweak that up to right the same position. And then detune oscillator 2 again. So when you use plugins, if you hold shift and move a controller, you'll be able to move it by a fine amount, or shift and mouse wheel also do the same thing. So it's a bit about there somewhere. Let's pull our cutoff down. Add a bit of attack. Actually, let's bring that cutoff back up again and we can listen to the oscillators. This, you have the option now to control the pulse width, which we do on the Nord, but we use both our LFOs. So by default, LFO 2 is targeting the pulse width. So we just need to turn up the amount, which is controlled just by this slider. So let's add in a bit of envelope control again. So here, this is our filter envelope. We set it to more or less the same as the amplitude envelope. Then we can also change key follow again, like we did on the Nord. And add in, so this is ADSR2, which is this envelope here. And this is the amount at which that is controlling that. So if we turn this up a bit, it's going to open and close our filter over time. A little resonance maybe. So then we get close to what we need. With this plugin we can also add a bit of noise in, because we're not having to sacrifice oscillator 2 like we do on the lead, so if we do that, you get much more of a sort of bright sound as the filter opens. Then we can use LFO 1 to do the tape fluttering effect that we saw before. So random glide is the one we want. And then over here it's already set to LFO 1, so the same again, we just add a chunk of modulation, turn down our cutoff, and turn our rate up. So we need to turn this off to none and turn down the depth, which is the amount that this controls this, because we want to do that just with this knob here. Just to taste. And again on Tyrell we can add in unison. We do that by the voices over here. And with the detune knob here. Polyphony and Tyrell is hard set at 8 notes, so once we've added 2 extra voices and we start playing chords, we're going to start to lose notes. They're going to get stolen away as new ones come in, so that's worth bearing in mind. If we do a large chord and then another one, all those voices are immediately switched off. So another option is not to use that and instead use the chorus. It's going to give a completely different vibe, but it's in the same kind of ballpark. So I've got this M30 reverb from TC Electronics. Let's switch that on. Let's put this back on. I like it. So there we go. We can do a lot more to this to refine it, but that's the general principle. There's a hell of a lot within Tyrell, like the mod matrix, which we can really get some interesting modulation going, but that's the basics covered. So, what to play and how to play it? Well, because of the slow attack that we've got on the start of our pad sound, fast playing, it's just going to get lost. So we're down to nice slow movements. This will help us to establish the harmony of our song and fill out the song using chords. So when playing chords on a pad, if you play notes close together, that's going to sound its most synthetic. Whereas if we space them out across the keyboard, that's going to give more of an orchestral type sound because it represents more the way a string arrangement is written, with basses and cellos and violas and violins at the top all spreading out, playing the same note in different registers. For this kind of playing, a sustain pedal is quite useful because it enables you to hold a note and then move, and then play another chord. So I'd recommend buying one of these, especially if you want to try this kind of playing. It's useful for lots of other things as well. So if you're looking for a darker tone to go with your pad, it's always worth thinking about the scale or mode that you've chosen to play in. Now for most of this tutorial I've been playing what's called a D Dorian scale, so I'll just lose the attack here a little so we can hear this. So D to D on the keyboard is the Dorian mode in D. That gives us a sort of melancholic but dark sort of tone to our sound. And if we choose chords and melodies based on those notes, that's going to give us that mood throughout our whole piece. So it's well worth considering that before you start to write. There's lots and lots of different scales and modes to choose from. Each one will have its own sound. But if we establish that as our key center, for example, starting at D, moving away somewhere, and then up back there, that's going to establish in the listener's ear that we're in that sort of territory. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you found that useful. If you've made it this far through the video, if you'd please leave a comment down below just to let me know what you thought of the first video in the series. I'm planning a few refinements as I go along. There's already a few little things that I wouldn't have done the same if I was to shoot it again. But I'm going to learn as I go along. So if there's anything you particularly want to learn, let me know. And please consider subscribing and check out my Patreon. Thanks very much for watching.